Hi all, this is the badging video for the Sandblaster here at MakeHaven. So the Sandblaster is a really useful tool. It shoots a jet of sand at metal, and the goal of it is to use that sand to blast off any rust or paint or oxides or mill scale or other things that you want to remove from your piece of metal. The way it works is just using compressed air. It mixes it with the abrasive, and here at MakeHaven we have a few different abrasives, but largely using a garnet abrasive, the same that the water jet uses, which is very hard. And when it hits at a really high rate, your whatever you're shooting at, it just knocks off the crud or rust, whatever it is. There are a lot of different media that people can use for sandblasting, but it's a bit of a process to change the media, so here we mostly use garnet. That means it's not very good for softer things because it'll just eat through it quickly. Another purpose is that garnet is hard enough that it creates a bit of a texture on your material. So what that can be useful for is preparing for powder coating or other kinds of finishing where you want the material to have a little bit of tooth to it, a little bit of, instead of being shiny smooth, have a little bit of roughness to it, which will make some finishes in here better. But that's something to bear in mind, that if you're using it to give your part a certain textural appearance, it can be useful, but it can also potentially remove more material than you want. There's no wet blasting with this, only dry blasting, so you don't want any water or other fluids to get into the hopper and getting mixed in with the abrasive. In terms of safety, the big one, in terms of safety, there are two big concerns here. The first is that it's shooting a jet of garnet abrasive, which is really potentially dangerous. So you only ever interact with it inside of this container, and you put your hands into gloves. You want to make sure not to point the jet at either of your other hands. Even though it's in a glove, it could punch through, and you don't want to aim it at the glass towards you. You want to make sure that it's pointed forwards, so that you're not in danger of getting hit by the blast. The second is all the dust that it makes. So the whole container should be in negative pressure by the vacuum. So the vacuum's sucking out the air. If you see any dust leaking out, then you need to shut down the system and make sure to clean out the filter, empty the canister to make sure that it's able to pull out all the dust you aren't breathing in. It doesn't hurt to also wear a mask, COVID aside, to make sure that you aren't breathing in any dust that may be getting out. All of the edges should be sealed, so it should be a pretty good system for making sure that it stays contained. And this is sucking all the dust out, but nonetheless. So now we'll get a little closer and see what's going on. So this is where the air is coming in. It's going through a filter. This valve is normally open, but if it were to be closed, which means in the sideways position, perpendicular to the pipe, that would need to be opened. There could also be fluid in here that this is filtering out. If that were to happen, you just want to loosen this to let out that fluid. Comes down here. Right now this is off, perpendicular. We would want to open that. Then there's a regulator here showing the pressure. We'll talk more about that in a minute. This is an air release to let the air out. This is a screen to make sure that when you're recycling the garnet, we don't get any chunks in there. And then it goes down into the hopper. There's a handle that makes a seal. Then we're going to go down here. This yellow handle controls how much the media is another word for the abrasive, can flow through. The red handle normally you can leave closed, but that's a drain. And then this blue valve is what controls the flow of the abrasive in the air to the gun. Here's a foot pedal, so you step on that when you want it to go. And then this is a sort of drain, so when you want to empty it out so that you can recycle the garnet, you'll just push down on here and it'll let it pour down into that bin. The garnet is very hard, so it can be recycled pretty efficiently. So you let it pour into there, and then you dump this through the screen into the hopper to make sure to clean out any big chunks. If at some point it is not being very effective anymore, then you can get more garnet abrasive or other kinds of abrasive from over here. So we have the garnet abrasive for the water jet. And then on the other side, we have these boxes which have other grits specifically for sandblasting. So you can see these are mostly 320 grit, but you could open these up and put them in. So that would be more fine than the garnet. Over here, the power strip, this switch turns on the vacuum and the light on top. So if we switch that, this vacuum turns on. Oh, actually, and we need to turn this switch. And the light turns on inside, so now we can see inside. You can see the gloves in here. This normally stays closed, but you can lift the whole thing if you wanted to. It has a nice vacuum seal. And just to reiterate, when you are blasting, this absolutely needs to be closed. So this door, which you can use to get parts in and out, needs to be closed and locked. Every other piece needs to be closed. That's very important. We don't want to let that dust out. Get started with sandblasting. We're going to put some of the garnet that's currently in this tank back in the hopper, so we know we have stuff to use. We're going to make sure that the screen is in here, so we're filtering out any big chunks so they don't clog our nozzle. I'm just going to push down here and fill this guy up, and then maybe tap it just so it doesn't spill on the floor. So we have this catch tray underneath. And then we're going to take this and pour it through the screen back into the hopper. So you might have seen there's a little bit of something in there. So we're going to make sure that that doesn't go down. It goes through here. So here's this little bit. And make sure that doesn't go in. We'll throw that in the trash. So we'll give that a little shake. And then all these bits and chunks, we're just going to toss that in the trash so they don't get in there. And then you can just use your hand to push the rest of it down into the hopper. And if when you're shooting the sandblaster, you see that it's just shooting air, there's no abrasive coming out, then it may be that the hopper's empty and you need to put more in it. So before we turn the air on, what we need to do is lift this screen out. Then after lifting the screen out, we need to make sure that this is closed so that the air isn't escaping. We're going to lift up on this handle to make that seal and turn this ball valve to be parallel with the pipe. So open U, lift. Now it's making that seal. We can see the pressure going up. Open this all the way. And you can hear a hissing sound, which is okay. It's some air escaping from the foot pedal through a release valve. The pressure should be set somewhere between 20 and 80 psi, depending on what you're doing. So it's a little hard to see from this angle, but 20 is down here and 80 is up here. So you'll want to change that. You can play around with that. Right now it's sitting around 60, so leave it there. The other piece to change is this handle. So what we're going to do is we're going to start by putting it, so this is totally closed. And we're going to go down about 30 degrees, so maybe about there, and we'll see what that does for us. The goal is for the abrasive to be a fine mist coming out of the jet so that it's barely visible when it's shooting out of the nozzle. That's sort of what you're going for. I'm going to flip this switch. And you can even see the gloves puff up because of the negative pressure in there. So I'm going to use the glove to move our piece over here and grab this nozzle. making sure not to hit the other glove. And then I'm going to push the foot pedal to make it go. A little spurting in the beginning is okay, but we're looking for a really fine stream. We're also going to make sure to keep moving back and forth. If you sit in one spot, you risk digging down into the metal. And then the vacuum is going to clean out the air. And hopefully you can see that just in a few seconds we removed the mill scale and now it's gray. Example, this is this old rusty hook thing. So you can obviously use two hands when you're not holding a camera, but you make sure not to hit the other hand because you don't want to put a hole in that glove. So in the beginning it was a pretty heavy pulse there, but by the end it was cleaning off the rust, but you couldn't even see the jet of abrasive, and that's what you're going for. But what we can do is even adjust this a little less so there's even less garnet. After you're done blasting, just wait for all the dust to clear out of the air before turning the vacuum off. You can shake off the gloves. Alright, so the dust is settled. Alright, so now that we're done blasting, we can open this up. We made sure to leave the vacuum on for a minute so it sucked all the dust out of the air. And you can see that this old rusty hook, we blasted the rust off of it. You know, you can also hang things up if you want to get different angles. When you're done, you just need to release the air from the system. We'll close that back up. So over here, we're going to turn off the input air. You can hear the pressure go down and you can see it dropping. And then we're going to open this a crack. And that will drain the air from the system. Once the air is drained from the system, then you're good to go. Thanks for watching.